pleasure to introduce Roz to you again, who, as you know, was one of the leaders and editors of the 2050 Science Framework, and she's going to give a presentation about that.
Thank you. So the Science Framework, I think for the most part, I'm only going to tell you things that you already know, but I know that there are some newer members to the community in the room, so maybe this will be new for some of you. The Science Framework, 2050 Science Framework, as in from now to 2050, will guide multidisciplinary subsequent research into the interconnected processes that characterize the complex Earth system and shape our planet's future. That's our mission statement in the framework itself, and it has the vision to be that IODP, or well, we didn't know then what we were going to be called, but scientific ocean drilling, be the globally recognized authoritative source of information about ocean and Earth system history and its links to society. So some ambitious aims. This is outlined in this document that is many pages long and available online. And I'm just going to give you a quick overview of how it was put together and why and what it contains. And then we're going to hear what the community has already started to do with it. So this was published in 2020, 3 years ago now. And builds on the back of previous science plans that have guided scientific ocean drilling. I mentioned earlier that we are 5+ decades into scientific ocean drilling. We are long past the exploratory phases of the very earliest heroic days of drilling, where you could basically drill a hole and see what you found. We do things in a planned and coordinated way, and we've had various science plans over the recent decades of the program, generally 10-year plans that outline the things that scientific ocean drilling could do. All these documents have been bottom-up, put together by the community. They are not prescriptive plans. They just outline the things that could be done, but the science is proposal-driven and driven by the scientists in the community. And so in order to carry that ethos forwards, moving forwards, because the current science plan illuminating Earth's past, present, and future ran originally through 2013, so 2013 through 2023, so it ended this year. It's actually the document that officially guides IODP phase 2, and so because IODP phase 2 was extended by a year, theoretically that's still the document guiding the drilling through the final days of the JR. But we needed something else to guide our future ocean drilling. Again, bottom-up approach. So the forum, ably led by Dick Kroon, asked the community to come together through a series of international workshops for the scientists to say what they thought they wanted to do over the next, well, originally over the next decade. And so we had a series of international workshops held in 2018, 2019, of which the European contribution was Proceed over on the right. And Mickey and I co-chaired that effort, but many in the room were part of the organizing team and helped lead that 2-day workshop in Vienna. So we asked our scientists in EGOR to come together and think about what challenges, what science we wanted to do, what capabilities we might need to do that. And the same happened in the other workshops. And the summer of 2019, delegates from each of those workshops came together for a very brief 1.5-day meeting in New York to compare notes, basically, see what we'd all said. And it turned out that the international community was in very good agreement about what they wanted to do. There was the same ideas basically coming out of all of those workshops, that we needed to be more interconnected in the way that we do our science rather than having siloed themes as perhaps we focused on in the past. That in order to inspire both our own community to do science, the public to support our science, and therefore the funding agencies to fund us, we need to include aspirational goals that which have societal impact. We, of course, needed to continue to be an inclusive and collaborative organization or group of people. I mean, scientific ocean drilling is probably the longest running, most enduring, most international scientific collaboration there is. So we want to keep that on moving forwards. It's really important. And we also want to make use of technological developments that have happened since the previous phase of ocean drilling and build that into what we can do. We have new technology, we can do more because of it, and so we should aim to do more. But the document that outlined that should have a new structure. We should have audience-specific versions for the scientists who are going to propose the science, but also to actually take what we're doing and communicate it to both our funding agencies and the public, a wide range of stakeholders. And that the document, rather than just being a printed booklet, should be a digital hyperlinked document which would take you to different interrelated parts of the process. I'm not going to dwell on the details here. What I want you to take away from this slide is that this was a really international, extensively involved process that took advantage of our vast community. So that group of people who met in New York put together a roadmap of what we thought we should do to get to a framework. It was still called a science plan at that point, and drafted an outline of what we thought it should contain based on what had come out of those workshops. We had internal review. Oops. We had community review. So 2,000 comments I had to go through and put together and collate into a database of what people thought should change about that document. We had a second round of community review once we'd had worked with our professional science writers and graphics team to put together a final version. So this was really both produced by the community. We had over 50 people involved in writing it and editing it, but also building on the reviews of the whole community. And then it was endorsed in September 2020 at the IODP forum, and that sort of put the rubber stamp on it. What does it actually involve? So, as I said, we're trying to take a more interconnected view of our science and include aspirational goals. So we're trying to look at the Earth now as an interconnected system. We are doing that by having 7 strategic objectives, and these are broad areas of scientific inquiry that focus on understanding the Earth as an interconnected system. But out of those, we've built 5 flagship initiatives as a starting point. This is a living document that could change. We could add flagship initiatives or strategic objectives in the future if we wanted to. And those flagship initiatives take advantage of the longer time frame that we have here. So rather than 10 years, almost 3 decades, that allow us to build ambitious multi-expedition drilling strategies to investigate issues that are of particular societal relevance. And they would probably, each one of those would probably bring together either coordinated expeditions or multiple expeditions that span multiple strategic objectives. We also have a part of the document that is dedicated to enabling elements, and these are the key facets of scientific ocean drilling that facilitate our research activity. So they're things that we should always keep in mind and build on as we're doing our science, and I'll go over those in a minute. And then finally, really perhaps a very important thing, given the way the landscape ocean drilling has developed, is our enduring principles. And these are the things that the community agreed were fundamental to any scientific ocean drilling program in the future. They are all things that scientific ocean drilling is already doing. They are really important in having that open, fair international collaboration. And given that you'll hear what the future of ocean drilling is going to look like, potentially involving multiple programs, it's really important that everyone is adhering to those enduring principles. So why is this, or how is this different to predecessor plans? Well, first of all, it's a framework, not a science plan. It doesn't list a series of things that we're going to do. It's the scaffolding on which we will build our programs or program over the next 3 decades. It outlines very broadly things that we are interested in, but it doesn't detail what platforms would be used to do what exactly we would do or where we would do it. So it's just the scaffolding, and it was in place before the programs had even begun to be developed. So we didn't know what programs we'd have, what they would be called. We just knew what sorts of things where we wanted to do. And in fact, it was required to have that scientific rationale in order to be able to not just build programs, but build facilities. And facilities isn't just platforms, it's all the other stuff that goes supporting ocean drilling. So it's the repositories, it's the databases, it's everything else that we need to do our science. Again, the enduring principles are in print, literally, so they are really important to it and will underpin the implementation of future ocean drilling. And this isn't actually different to previous plans, but I want to highlight it anyway, just to say again, it was written by the community for the community. This is what you wanted to do. It's available online, so it is a digital hyperlinked document. There are also a limited number of printed copies because UK-IODP paid to print some because they are very useful to actually be able to put on someone's desk and show them the importance of what we're doing. There is, it's beautifully illustrated. It's got lots of wonderful figures and graphics in it. So these are just some snapshots of the full framework. So just to come back to some of those things, we've got the 7 strategic objectives. I'm not going to read the details to you. I think that you've all flipped through the document, but if you haven't, you can. The key thing here is that some of these things have buzzwords in that you might link with a particular challenge or theme that we had before, but some of these strategic objectives very much straddle multiple areas of Earth science, things like investigating feedbacks in the Earth system. They could be between the climate system and the lithosphere. We just heard about isostatic rebound and its effect on landslides. So interactions across the system. So they're broad and they're open so that you can come up with all sorts of ideas of things that you could do, and hopefully you would find strategic objectives that advance. and they're interlinked. So these are just highlighting in light grey in the document, there are hyperlinks that take you to other parts of the science framework that would relate to that science. We have the 5 flagship initiatives. And again, these are things that we thought would involve coordinated, sustained drilling efforts, long-term drilling endeavours that would require coordinated planning and management. Again, long-term, there's a particular focus on society, but there is no implementation plan. And we'll come to that in a minute when we think about the Magellan Plus workshops that Tony was just mentioning. So all we have at the end of each one of these sections in the framework is a way forward, which just very, very broadly suggests the sorts of things that might be needed to advance this area of science, but it is not a prescriptive plan. We have our enabling elements, and they are things like integrating with other allied programs, so land to sea drilling and also the space programs, but also making sure that impact and outreach are part of our plans from the beginning. I very briefly earlier flashed up a slide of going into schools. I think outreach is really important, but we need to do it in a more coordinated manner, and we need to think about it from the start. But really, really importantly, we also need to build on technology development and big data analytics. We were beginning to hear this morning as well about some of the things that we can do with machine learning approaches. We're going to have vast data sets, and data sets are only going to get bigger with time. So we need to think about how we can use those better. We have multiple versions as we were asked for. So there's a 2-pager and a 12-pager that can be used for different audiences. And so again, it differs from previous plans because it is multidisciplinary. There is a particular emphasis on societal impact or interest, and it has a drastically different structure. We no longer have a list of challenges that you can just say, oh, I'm dealing with challenge 1 and 3 in your proposal. There's broad questions suggested in each one of the strategic objectives, but at no point is there a specific question or a specific list of challenges. And that's going to affect how we implement our science and how we write our proposals. And so the work has begun to think about how we move to how we're going to assess proposals and what they will look like in the future. And of course, it's much longer ranging. We have this long time frame, partly to allow us to include some really ambitious goals, and partly because if we're going to have new platforms, we need to have enough science to make them justified. And of course, like I said, it's not going to ever be comprehensive. You can't write down in a document of this length everything you could possibly ever do. So we're going to need to maintain it over the next 3 decades. We're going to think about what we've done, what we might want to add. We're going to learn new things along the way, and that's going to change what we want to do, or whole new fields of science might arise that could be tackled with ocean drilling. So we need to be flexible. I just want to highlight that we want to have strengthened collaborations with our continental drilling program sister / brother / both. And there are a range of things in the science framework that could be addressed with a land to sea approach. And in particular, this is worth highlighting because various of the projects that you would potentially call amphibious that have happened already have involved a mission-specific platform approach. So this allying with ICDP is really a thing that we can leverage moving forwards into IODP cubed with MSP approach, partly because land to sea transects might involve shallow water drilling in a coastal region and then onshore, partly because actually it might be that we want to examine ocean rocks but on land, so like the Oman project did. So finally, to lead into the next bit, I mentioned the flagship initiatives in particular are going to require the community to develop strategies and technologies to implement multiple coordinated expeditions, taking advantage of this multi-decadal timeframe of the science framework. And the way that has begun to be moved forward is through holding workshops that are beginning to come up with ideas of how we will address some of these issues in the science framework. And several of those have been led by UK scientists. So over the next part of this session, we're going to hear about some of the workshops that have happened already and the progress that they have made. And I think that's everything. Beyond, I want to say thank you to everyone who contributed to this process. Like I said, it was an enormous community effort. Many, many, many hundreds of people read the document or contributed to the document. So thank you very much. I hope that we use it over the next 3 decades and do lots of fantastic science. On the IODP website, she has actually extracted all the figures from the framework and made them available as easily downloadable PDFs with their captions. And you can take these and use them, just credit the framework. They were intended to be a resource for the community to use in presentations or anything. So they are now all on the UK-IODP website under For Educators. So please do use them.